So as we all know, Swamp Thing was cancelled before its first episode, and unjustly so, but it was clearly very popular amongst fans, and I thoroughly enjoyed it in its both incredible production, which isn't something too surprising with the great look of DC Universe shows in Titans and Doom Patrol, but there was something else about Swamp Thing. Bringing this character to life on screen, to me, felt like very ambitious, but they pulled it off in a very masterfully kind of executed way, and as it came to our screens, it landed very well as more or less this definitive Swamp Thing experience, also breathing life into other characters such as Blue Devil or the Phantom Stranger, and after 10 episodes in a special tease, even the Floronic Man. But the question I want to go over in today's video is, where could Swamp Thing have gone in future seasons if we were to have ever have got that? If it wasn't cancelled, where could characters have gone? What teasers have we already found out since cancellation that you may or may not know about? Well, that is what we're going over in today's video, guys, so be sure to like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and subscribe for more DC nerdy content just like this. So this one's actually been out there for a little while, but Business Insider was actually told by a source close to production on the show that apparently it had a possible 3-season arc, with the feeling that it could have gone past that if it was a hit, with characters even spinning off into their own shows. Now, the source used the specific example of a potential Justice League Dark team-up series, which to me, just given the characters or the variety of characters that have assisted in one way or another with Justice League Dark, is just, man, imagining that coming to fruition in Swamp Thing's future is just insane. And if you know me and the channel a bit, you probably already know why. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with or have at least heard of the Justice League Dark, who usually featured members such as one of my favorite characters, John Constantine, which I would do anything to get on the DC Universe in his own show or just appearance, which is exactly what we're getting onto right now. But also other characters like Xanadu, who we've even seen on Swamp Thing in Season 1, and other characters like Shades, Zatanna, among a variety of different members, including the Phantom Stranger, who we also saw. The building blocks, ultimately, guys, here at the bottom line, were definitely there. I've always said that I would love to see a John Constantine series in the DC Universe, whether that's in his own show, obviously, but with what this source told Business Insider, with characters spinning off into their own shows, I can just envision it so clearly that in a 3rd season, we could have had Constantine's search for the Swamp Thing in Moray, who would have likely made the name for himself after a couple of seasons, and he could have had an arc in the show similar to how they already showed the Phantom Stranger, but just more focused and introduced earlier on in like Season 3 perhaps, with just John coming into Moray finding Swamp Thing. Now, of course, they would have made up their own story. Perhaps John knew all of this because of the Phantom Stranger or Xanadu, but ultimately now we will never know. And to be honest, it's such, I mean, for me being such a big fan of the said characters, it's such a bittersweet contemplation. I can't talk about it for much longer. Now, if you're watching this video, I can only assume that you've seen all of the episodes of Season 1. If you haven't, then I don't know why you're watching this video in terms of what it could have been. But in Season 1, Episode 4, we were also teased with a memory from Abby's past. It's still unknown for sure to this day who this mysterious stranger was, and probably who you're seeing on screen right now, when Abby was infected and was traumatized by getting dragged throughout the swamp by this mysterious figure. I mean, I have to assume that it was personally a very, very early setup for Anton Arcane. Now, I'm not going to get way ahead of myself. I don't know for sure who this person is, but as I just said, I do think that it was a very early foreshadowing of seasons to come in Swamp Thing. If you guys know anything about Anton Arcane, you will know that he's very interweaved with the character that is Swamp Thing. So I'm just going to, since this is a video about what it could have been, just go over a couple of details of Anton Arcane. At the same time, I assume quite a few people who are watching this already know who Anton Arcane is and how he ties to Abby Arcane, apart from obviously the last name. But for those who don't know too much, he is the uncle of Abby Arcane and is one of the primary arch nemesis, if you will, of Swamp Thing. Now, let's just say Anton Arcane was a very, very messed up person, no matter what kind of iteration of comic book background you're looking at him. So whether that's from a really young age, he lived kind of experimenting and dabbling in further disturbing things such as unethical experimentation, such as like reanimation of the dead, some things that I probably can't say without getting demonetized. He would also just mix in his scientific knowledge with magic and necromancy, but ultimately as well, he was also fascinated with immortality, which linked him to the kind of mutagenic properties, similar to what I guess you would say they explored with Jason Woodrue this season, with Swamp Thing's mutagenic properties for his wife, which Anton kind of for his own purpose wanted to link for immortality. He's even body hopped into different vessels in the comics. He's even been to hell after dying and even escaped and possessed Matt Cable's body, and has even appeared as a demon. But after these origins, for example, from the New Earth, they kind of leaned in a lot more heavily to the rot side of things. For example, from a young age, he found this rotting rabbit, and he ate the said rabbit, which kind of led to him becoming the avatar of the Parliament of Decay. And if you guys know, who is the avatar of the green? Swampy. So like they kind of leaned into that more side of things, and that's I would say the more probable approach that they would have gone with the Swamp Thing TV show. His more or less sole task being the avatar of Decay was to spread exactly that and the rot, and just to rid the avatars of the green. And now this is something that season 1 I do believe was exploring. Of course, they did just want to tie in the nature of the elements in general, and how, you know, when there's, you know, the green, there is the opposite, the rot. But I just like to think that in future seasons they would have tied back to season 1 and how Anton or something like that, especially given the, you know, mysterious figure who I'm assuming to be an Anton reference. Who knows how they could have adapted that? There could be a billion different ideas that they could have done to make it work, so he was kind of there all along. Maybe something happened to him in the past that just made him not at full strength, if you know what I mean. But talking about the Avatar and just the Parliament of Decay, Swamp Thing were actually going to do the Parliament of Trees. Now, this is quite interesting because they were even building props that were likely to be used in the original 13 episode order. Now, as a result of being reduced to 10 episodes, you can only assume that production on these was ceased. As you can see on screen, some were kind of almost looking near done, or like just further along the line than other ones, and as a result, they were just no longer implemented. Now, I would have loved to have seen this. I mean, we've already had like the verbal cues of Swampy just talking to the trees and how they tell him things, and then just to imagine him having a whole scene with the Parliament of Trees, that would have been awesome. And who knows, maybe we would have even got some verbal cues to the Parliament of Decay and how Swamp Thing, you know, this could be picked up in a future season, which is exactly what we're talking about with Anton. There was more than meets the eye with that, and maybe, just maybe, they have their own avatar, which has been explored in the past, and perhaps he is coming back. I just expect that they would have done something like that, and that foreshadowing with that mysterious figure would have maybe tied in. But if you want to see more of these pictures, they are on the subreddit for Swamp Thing. Now, also recently, guys, very recently, I had to include this in the video, we have got our kind of official looks at the concept and just very detailed looks at the Floronic Man. Now, sorry if I'm butchering the name. This is coming from the artist Gerard Marantas. I will leave his Instagram link in the description down below. But it's just really detailed looks at what the Floronic Man was going to look like from all angles. Now, of course, we did see him in the after credits of Swamp Thing, but it was very dimly lit, but now you can really see what he looks like in his full glory and design. He describes that designing the character that was the opposite of Swamp Thing was a challenge, and that they went dry and dead with him and stayed in the yellows, whereas obviously with Swamp Thing, he's kind of very green, he has little kind of plants growing out of him, and all of that stuff. But I just find this fascinating. It just sucks that we're not going to see these designs, you know, well, what we saw in the after credit scene come to fruition in a second season. But also most recently as well, guys, he also released the look at Blue Devil. Now this just looks absolutely awesome as well. As you guys know, if you watch my reviews, I was a big fan of what we saw with Blue Devil, and it really sucks that we didn't get more with him. Obviously, the last we saw of him was Leaving Mirai. And that could have turned off into arguably its own spin-off show as well. with what we mentioned earlier with the Justice League Dark potential spin-off series. What we saw from Daniel Cassidy and how he wanted a greater purpose and how he probably didn't initially like being the Blue Devil and was freaked out by it, you can just imagine where his character would have gone, and how cool his powers that we already saw on screen were, and the design of this suit was just absolutely incredible. The makeup for this person under the suit must have been a disaster. But either way, I just wanted to include what these looks were from the artist himself who created the designs of these characters. But aside from that, everyone, that is all I'm going to include for this video. Let me know if you want to see like a part 2 with other characters such as what could have happened with Matt Cable, obviously other characters such as Shady Avery, who I like to call him, and just other characters in general and where Swamp Thing could have gone with them. I know this show is over, but I really truly feel, just like what James Wan said, immortalize this series, just treat it as like a one big massive movie. And you know, I'm a big fan of it, so why not make more videos on it every now and again for something we all really loved, and it was a massive shame to even see it go in the first place when it shouldn't have even gone, to be honest. Like, it was just stupid. But if some of you guys got to this point of the video, and especially this point of the video, leave a thumbs up on it, as it really does show your support for the channel. As you can tell, this is kind of like a new outro thing for me, so check out the recommended videos to the side of me. I have no idea what it looks like yet. Check out my Patreon page if you want to support the channel even further. But that is absolutely everything, guys, so thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Swamp Things in the next video. Goodbye.